Now what we're going to do is we're going to tie our ridge line. And for that, we're first going to need to tie a bowline knot. Now I've tied my bowline knot, and if you want to learn how to tie this knot, I'll put a link in the description below of one of my videos where I teach you how to tie this knot. Now what we want to do is we want to go on the around the left side of the tree. Now what we do is we take the remainder of our paracord and go through the loop of the bowline knot, and now we have a second loop. Then we take a stick, make it go through that second loop, and we pull away from the tree. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure the stick goes up and down on a line like that, and while we're holding it down on the tree like that, what we're going to do is we're going to yank and pull as hard as we can away on the left side of the stick. And then what we'll do is we'll go to the right side of it and pull on the right side and yank it. And then back to the left side, yank and pull, and now it'll stay there tight, and now we can work on our knot at the other tree. Now that we cut our paracord to the length we need, we can now use a lighter or match and melt the end of it. Now what you do is you take your other end and you make it go around the left side of the other tree, and you pull very tight with much strength. Then what you do is you take your working end and make it go over the stain end and under it, and then pull very tight. This is where you want to keep the most amount of tension on the ridge line. Now what we do is we make a U shape right here. Then we take our tag end and make it go through that U shape, and we pull it away from the tree. Now when you have your loop, what you do is you take a stick, make it go through that loop, and you pull the slip knot end of your loop and you pull it down, and now your loop won't slip. Now what you do is you give the ridge line a pluck, make sure it's tight, and this is pretty tight. Now what we do is we set up our shelter. Depending on how big your tarp is, you can make your ridge line and adjust it to whatever size you want based on that. But for me, my tarp is 10 by 10, so I'm making it about 4 feet high. We're going to make loops for our tie-out points. What you're going to do is you're going to take both of the ends of little strands of paracord that you cut, and you're going to tie a simple overhand knot. Now we have a loop. Now, what we do with our loops is we tie a plastic knot. Plastic knot tutorial linked below. What it's for is when you hold it down with your fingers it should move around very easily, but when you pull it down with tension, it's a bit harder to move it. And sometimes not even at all, depending on how tight you tied it. Now what we do is we tie or clip this to the tie-up points of the tarp shelter, and you got yourself a plastic nut tied to the tie-up point. This will make your shelter tight, so the rain won't get into the shelter and it'll just go right off. What I could have done was, I could have took, you see these are the top ridge lines of the tarp. Now I could have made these go below, and I could have made more loops and tied these onto that like that, but what I did right here was easier, so I did that. And it's still pretty structurable. It's very good. Now this one is the A-frame. Now this is my favorite shelter. Now, let's talk about the positives and negatives. The pros are that if you sit in the middle, then you can sit up definitely. And there's plenty of room for you and your gear. It's very stable in strong wind and rain. And you can fit multiple people in here. Although some negatives, there's no ground sheet. And you're still limited on headroom if you go on the sides. And yeah, there's a lot of room in this one, and it's pretty great. I like this one. It's my favorite.